Prosecutors will decide whether to retry one of the men featured in the popular series Making a Murderer, now that a federal judge has tossed out his murder conviction. Brendan Dassey was just 16 when he confessed to helping his uncle Stephen Avery kill Teresa Halbach. Both were sentenced to life in prison, but Dassey's defense team argues that Dassey was bullied into making that confession. I'm joined now by criminal defense attorney Randy Zelin. Randy, I cannot tell you what a huge moment this was when I saw this cross our desk yesterday. Talk to me about the intersection of how this Netflix documentary may have impacted how this judge decided to overturn this conviction.
What it has done, I think more than anything else, it has taken that light that we love to talk about and has actually shined it on our criminal justice system. Our country has the opportunity to see the horrors. You want to talk about damage we just saw about El Faro? Mr. Dassey is El Faro, the destruction that was done to his life as a result of the coercion, the manipulation, just to get a conviction. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the wrong kid was convicted, and the media, what the media has done this is a momentous occasion in our history because the media has allowed this country, and it has nothing to do with race, it has nothing to do with the color of anyone's skin, it doesn't matter who you are. Look at what law enforcement is capable of doing, all in the name of just getting a conviction as opposed to just doing justice.
What troubled me so much, I was so depressed when I watched this, but I kept watching it because it sort of opened your eyes to law enforcement and the judicial system, especially in smaller towns. But what I was so troubled, it wasn't just law enforcement. His own defense attorney, and I want to read to you what the judge said here. He actually said that the defense attorney encouraged him to confess, and he called it inexcusable. He said that it was both tactically and ethically inexcusable, is what he wrote in his statement here. I mean, how can you have someone who's a defense attorney who forces a kid who likely didn't do anything wrong to actually confess?
You can't. What we watched, Mr. Dassey would have been better off having the prosecutor, along with Ms. Dahlbach's father, as his attorney than the attorney that he had. And once again, it has allowed this country to see what goes on, and so the country can know that the defense bar is charged with the responsibility of making sure that the government, as was said by the Supreme Court in 1935, strikes fair blows, hard blows, but not foul blows.
How hard is it to prove that a testimony, a confession, was coerced?
It is an extraordinary thing, which is why I am so lucky to be on with you. This is such a historical moment in our criminal justice system. It is a historical moment for the media because these kinds of convictions, they're never overturned. Even the judge said, I understand what I'm doing is extraordinary, but this was such an extreme malfunction in our criminal justice system that I have no choice. And he was right.
So tell us what happens to Brendan Dassey now.
Well, as a result of the conviction being thrown out, and remember that this was a state criminal conviction thrown out by a federal district judge, a magistrate judge. So we went from state to federal. Why? Because the law says, the United States Code says, that when your conviction is the product of a violation of your constitutional rights, say goodbye to the conviction. So the conviction now has been tossed out by the federal magistrate judge. The prosecution now has 90 days to make a decision to either retry Mr. Dassey or to say, we're done here. And we can only pray that the prosecution chooses the latter, does the right thing, takes that extraordinarily difficult but the only right step, and say, we're done here.
We know there were two cases. The bigger case was Stephen Avery, the uncle of Brendan Dassey. Both of them received life sentences. They were separate cases. What happens to Stephen Avery's case as well?
That is something that I hope will be debated not only across dinner tables across our country, but in the office of the prosecutors, because what happens here, it almost doesn't matter what Mr. Avery did or what Mr. Avery didn't do or what can be proven. This prosecution is now so tainted Because remember what the definition of reasonable doubt is. Reasonable doubt is nothing more than you need to make a decision who to marry, whether to have surgery, where your child should go to college. If you have enough information, if you're sitting in the doctor's office and the doctor says, Randy, you need surgery, and I go, okay, let's schedule it, I don't have a reasonable doubt. However, if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you know, I think I need another opinion, that is reasonable doubt. And as a result of what happened to Mr. Dassey, how can any reasonable juror have, for one moment, not have a reasonable doubt about Mr. Avery's guilt?
Okay, I can't recommend the series enough. It is depressing but very eye-opening, and kudos to the two filmmakers, two women who actually brought this whole entire series to Netflix. It was pretty remarkable. Randy Zelin, thank you so much.
Thank you.